My name is Tom Cundict. This is Chess in MATLAB, and it's my submission for the ENCMP 100 programming contest. So what is it? Basically, it's chess for 2 players played in the MATLAB IDE. It supports all the rules of chess. I made it to have an easy-to-use interface and hopefully a visually appealing board. It supports 2 commands, draw and resign, so that players can do a little bit more than just make moves on their turn. And I wrote all the code by myself. I also tried to follow sort of a modular approach, so it's a lot of functions and then one main script that calls them and they call others as needed. So I'm going to hop over to MATLAB right now and give you a little quick demo. So this is a position that I specifically imported, and here, let's say black wants to play the move g7, move that pawn up to g5. So they go ahead and do that, and white spots a great move, and they're going to take that en passant with h5 to g6. They go ahead and do so, and this is actually checkmate. We have this bishop attacking, this rook attacking, knight protecting the 2 squares, and the queen defending the pawn. So let's say we want to play again, and let's say in this position black tries to be a little sneaky and wants to draw. They offer a draw, and white, being shrewd, says no, and then black here can also resign. They want, because the position is definitely lost. So it's a quick demo. And let's hop over back to the presentation, and I'll talk a little bit about the development process. So tried to use a milestone-based approach. So I sat down at the start and I identified 4 basic elements that I would have to create in order to have a functioning program at the end. Those were the internal representation, the move gen, displaying the board to the user, and then actually getting the user input and playing the game. And I had a timeline basically of sort of starting in end of October and then finishing by the end of November, so that I could have a week to, create this video and all that. But as Mike Tyson so famously said, is that everybody has a plan until they get punched in the mouth by midterms. And I'm not entirely sure I got that quote correct, but it's definitely very applicable to the development process here, because midterms lasted a little longer than I thought they were gonna. Purely my own fault, though. And move generation ended up getting pushed out about 2 weeks, and so I finished it, and then just worked a little bit harder and got displaying the board done pretty quick to get back on track to finish user input and streamlined game loop by the sort of last week in November. I also used Git and GitHub for version control, so I could develop a little bit more efficiently between my desktop and my laptop, and it streamlined really moving the files over. And then early on, I came up with the, arrived at the issue of how to transfer information within this sort of function-based system that I built. And I could just use the regular arguments and outputs system, but that would have caused my functions to have quite a few arguments and quite a few outputs, and it just got kind of messy really quick. So I opted to go with a class-based approach, which led me to explain what is a class. Well, basically it's a template to create a specific sort of data structure. So every class has a set of standard variables called properties and a set of functions that are specific to it called methods. So the game class that I ended up building, as an example, had board and turn properties that would store what the board looked like and whose turn it is, respectively. It also had an isCheckmate method, so when this function gets called, it looks at the current board state and determines whether or not there's a checkmate there, which we saw a little bit earlier. You can have multiple objects of the same class, but all of their properties are, the values of their properties are distinct. They have the same types of properties and the same types of methods, but the actual values stored in them are different. So I created this little diagram to help define, or help explain what I'm trying to get at here. So we have the properties, methods, and events that are defined by some class definition, and then they are all given to each individual object when they get created here. And then each object can have distinct values for these. So you can see the boards for all of these 3 games are different. Whose turn it is can also be different. And then the method itself is returning different values. So you can see in game 2 here, we have the white queen has just moved up to that back rank and checkmated black, so isCheckmate is returning true here. Yeah, and so that's just in MATLAB. These are a couple of references for the images that I used in this presentation, and again, the images for the piece are attributed in the README. Thank you, that'll be all.